I'm here today with Jean Delport from Restaurant Interlude at Leonardslee Gardens. It's a gorgeous day and it's welcome. I'm really pleased that you're taking part in this.
Yeah, thanks for letting us join.
I'm delighted you're going to be cooking a chocolate dish today. Yeah. I defy anyone to say they don't like chocolate. I presume it's very popular on your menu when you have put a chocolate dessert on.
Yeah, so I think on our menus we've always got a space for a chocolate dessert. So when we do it, we try and keep it a little bit more simple, but really make it quite intense. So this is just going to put together a dish that we're busy working on now that we'll hopefully put on the menu soon. We're still perfecting little bits and bobs, but what we want to do is just showcase the local chocolate as much as possible. So at the moment we're sourcing it from J Coco. He's out in Sussex, and we've actually started working together probably about a year ago, to be fair, and increasing over 2-3 months. I keep just getting more and more and more things from him. But what's really cool is that he looks for single origin beans from around the world, and he just works on different flavor profiles. So I can tell him I'm looking for a really bitter chocolate, a sweeter chocolate, something that's very acidic, something that's not acidic, and create something for dishes that I might not be able to just go and buy. So what are you going to do for us today? All right, so what we're going to do is I've been playing with this single region Peruvian chocolate. So it's 72% dark chocolate. It's fairly bitter, but it's got quite high acidity, which is quite nice and fun. And obviously what we're going to do is we want to showcase that. I don't want to take the flavor away from that. So we're going to set that in a couple of different ways. The process of the dish is fairly long, to be fair, so we're going to skip out a couple of steps, and I'll show you how we've got there, and I'll talk you through what we've done. But the best case is to come in and have a look and taste it for yourselves, really, because I think it's going to be a killer of a dish. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with making the chocolate cremeux, which is pretty much the basis of the dessert. So I thought I'd show us how to do that today, and then I'll walk us through the rest. So what we've done in here, I've malted 190 grams of the chocolate that we've sourced from J Coco. I've got 250 mils of milk and 250 mils of cream. We're just going to slowly heat this up. We don't want to boil it, we just want to warm it up. We don't want to scald the milk, so we want to keep the natural sweetness of the milks and the creams together. So we just want to really just literally heat it up to above blood temperature. All right, then in the bowl, I've got about 50 grams of caster sugar. And then I've got 5 egg yolks. And we're just going to whisk this together and get it nice and creamy. And what you'll see is it'll come together, it'll go nice and like a really light, pale, yellowy color. And just make sure that, obviously we're using induction, the whole kitchen we're quite lucky with quite electric, so we don't try and stay away from gas. But it does scald the bottom of your pan, so you just want to keep the milk moving a little bit. And while that heats up, I'm just going to quickly get this light and fluffy. What we're going to do is we want to make sure that all the sugar is dissolved in the egg yolks, but we don't want to make it too whip it too much, where it goes a nice foam on it, otherwise it's just going to start sitting in the chocolate. So if you just go long and slow is probably your best. Okay, and this is sort of the same sort of consistency as the melted chocolate? Eventually it could be, to be fair, yeah, won't be far off from there. You'll just get a little bit of volume to that. And what we're going to do by making a cremeux is a set chocolate custard, really. So we're going to make this into a basic custard. We're going to chuck it on the chocolate and set it with a touch more gelatine, and then we'll set it into our molds. So you'll see now it's kind of almost doubled in volume, but it's getting really nice and thick that it's starting to show a bit of a ribbon effect. And yeah, that's kind of where you want to get. You can take it further. It's not necessary all the way, but you want to get to, that's a minimum stage that you really want to get to. So what we're doing now, pretty much we call tempering the milk. So we're just going to heat that up. We're going to pour it over, temper the eggs to the same level of the milk, and then bring that up to temperature. And what we're aiming for is we're going to cook this custard to about 86 degrees. Right, that just takes it above any levels. And then we just do it long and slow, avoiding any kind of eggy flavour coming through. Just going to temper a little bit of it first. So you normally want to go about a third on top of that. Okay. You don't want to cook the eggs. Yeah, exactly. So that's why I said don't bring your milk up to just above blood temperature, but we'd rather take it slower and longer on top of the heat, rather than scalding your eggs straight away. The worst thing you want to do is taste egg in your custard, and then it kind of ruins the whole base. So you add it at a third, get it nice to the temperature. Add your next third in. going to add that back into the warm milk. And pretty much what we're going to do now is we're going to just take this to 86 degrees. Always stir in like a figure of 8 motion on top of your custard. That way you're always consistently moving when agitating the liquid within the pot without splashing out.
Okay, you're keeping it from getting too hot on the bottom.
Yeah, pretty much. So we're getting across all the sides, the bottoms. And we just figured the figure of 8 motion is really quite the best way to do it. So while that's cooking, what we do is we're going to take 3 leaves of gelatine, and we're going to soften it in a little bit of ice water or bloom it. This is just going to help stabilize the dessert. It isn't needed, but I like to add just a little bit, especially now being the middle of summer. Things tend to just melt away.
Get a bit hot.
Yeah, and obviously the kitchens get a bit warm, so it is nice. I just prefer a little bit more texture with this as well. Everything just becomes a little bit too soft on the plate. So what we've done with the chocolate, just make sure it's completely melted. Again, you don't want it too hot. Ideally what you want to try and do is keep this above blood temperature. This will be 86, and then we're going to just combine the two. Okay. If this gets too hot, it could possibly split. So we want to try and avoid that as much as we can. So you'll see now it slowly starts getting a bit thicker as we work it. And that's ideally what we're looking for. Right, so what we've done here, we've reached now about 86 degrees. If you wanted to, you could take it a little bit less, depending on, but I just prefer the structure. Again, it gets a bit too soft, so I found 86 is kind of where I need it to be. And what we're going to do is now we're just going to soften gelatine. We're just going to squeeze out any excess water into this.
So do you know from experience what 86 degrees feels like?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I've used to, a lot of my cooking was as a pastry chef, and I did that for about 10 years. So yeah, you can start seeing by the way it's coating the back of the spoon. Yeah. And you can start seeing it. You can even get the smell really. You can start getting it. So what we've done now is we're just going to add that. We've added the gelatine. We're just going to stir that in. Right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to combine this with the chocolate. We're going to do it almost like you would make a ganache. We're going to add it in 3 different stages. Right. So chocolate's not too hot. You can feel there. We're not going to burn or scald anyone. So that's good. So that way we're not going to increase the temperature of that either. So we want to try keep that cooler now, or rather it's reached where it needs to be. So now we're just going to combine it all. All right, so we're going to add a third of that. And we're just going to go in small little circles in the middle and just slowly combine the chocolate with the cream. Yeah, so now we'll get it shinier than this, but obviously you want to put the first third in so it doesn't split. Then you're going to add your second third in. All right, so over here now we've combined everything. You can see it's fairly liquid, but obviously once it's set, the chocolate will set hard. The gelatine will help keep it soft, but also set. And we'll now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give this a quick blitz with a hand blender, and that'll just emulsify all the proteins with the chocolate. And it'll bring it together, and we'll actually get a better set.
Okay.
So what we do is now, if I set it like this, it will be a little bit soft when it comes to being after it's set. Where if I do that, you'll get a much stiffer, and once it gets to room temperature, it'll just sit much nicer on the plate, which is quite fun. Okay. Yeah, so we're just going to give it a quick little blend. Just be careful it doesn't shoot back out at you. No, it won't. Just don't lift it out and then go to angle. Go straight down like that. Okay. And then what you want to do is, as you're blitzing, you want to just lift it up like that. So what we've got now is we've got a much thicker viscosity, so it's really combined everything quite nicely. So this will just set, once cooled down, it'll set quite nicely.
Okay.
Right. So what we're going to do is we're going to transfer it to a piping bag. I don't know if you wanted to have a taste.
Okay, if I must. Heavenly.
Yeah. So what we've done is we just put it in the piping bag just to make it a bit easier for ourselves. Just put the knots in there. And what we're going to do is we're just going to fill up these little molds. with the chocolate. Then what we do is we then set it normally, and we then scoop out a little bit, fill it with the Mugwort Caramel, fill it again, and then put a chocolate base at the bottom. But I want to fast forward a few of those steps. So we're going to fill these. So what we do now is we'd stick this in the fridge, ideally in the freezer. You don't want to freeze it hard, but you want to get it so it sets nicely. We then scoop out the middle, and we then pipe in. What we have here is that Mugwort Caramel, which is quite nicely set. So this comes to room temperature, and we've infused it with that. So I don't know if you want to have a taste of that one.
Uh-oh.
And what you get on there is quite grassy notes.
Oh, it's delicious.
So again, it's bringing the gardens in, but now imagine that with the chocolate.
Really lovely.
So then what we do is we set that in there, and once that's up to temperature, this once it's on the plate, we've got a really soft caramel center, which is quite fun. Right, so these are the ones that we've made earlier. So you can see they're fairly hard, and what we're going to do is we're going to glaze this now with the caramel and chocolate glaze, and just give it a white. So we were working on doing a chocolate stone, but our mold wasn't big enough, so I've just changed the shape a little bit for today to see how we get. But now we get a nice depth of chocolate. What we've got here now is a chocolate glaze made with the chocolate itself again. So every time we've used chocolate on the plate, we've used the 72% chocolate, and we've made a caramel glaze as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to coat this chocolate cremeux very much similar to an entree, but really small, and just make it really powerful. So we don't want to make this portion too big. Obviously it's in line and style with the restaurant and what we're doing, but we wanted to pack a massive punch. So by adding flavor and layering it all up, it creates hopefully an amazing mouthful, which is different for everyone else. So what we do is we get this just around below blood temperature, 26 to 32 degrees, and we found then the glaze really sticks nicely to the chocolate itself. So we're just going to give that just going to pour it into our glazing guns. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to pretty much marble the two glazes on top. So we're going to go chocolate and caramel at the same time, and then I'm going to finish it off with a streak of the white glaze, and then hopefully it should come together.
I'm sure it will.
Let's go for it.
Okay, go for it.
Chocolate. So the chocolate glaze is a little bit too warm, to be fair, but it should get the job done. So that's the chocolate and the caramel on, and then we're just going to give it a streak of the white. Yeah. So the glaze is a touch thin. What we normally do is try to get it a little bit thicker. And now what we do is we stick it in the fridge, let it get set up, and then we'll be able to plate with it.
Okay, fantastic.
Cool. So Hilary, what you can see here is that we've gone over this quite quickly to try and show you guys. But you can see there's a bit of irregularity. So normally once we've glazed, it'll be completely smooth. And so we normally just get the glaze a touch cooler. Obviously it's a really hot day today, so it doesn't really hot, does it? And then what we do is it'll be completely glossy, completely smooth, and it'll just takes it to the next level pretty much. But yeah, these will work for all purposes today. And what we do is we're just going to pop that on top of the chocolate soil base. Again, chocolate soil. It's been created again from the chocolate. We've just combined it with glucose and fondant icing, and we've cooked it out and then ground it to a powder. And that just creates a little bit of texture, but it's more to help us work with the chocolate, otherwise it gets a bit soft and a bit tacky.
Okay.
So we'll start with the touch of the caramel just at the base. And what I've made earlier here is a chocolate tuile. So again, using the same chocolate, ground it back down into fine powder, baked it off, and we've just made like a little base for the chocolate to sit on. And we're just going to push that down there. And then what we do is we get it to that point, and then we get it to room temperature, and we let it stand for about 5-10 minutes. depending on how the weather is and things like that. But what you want to get is an ideal, just really soft all the way through, and then you get that nice room temperature caramel, which just gets nice and gooey.
And that's got the little caramel centre as well.
Yes, correct, yeah. So the chocolate and everything to combine will just be really nice and soft. So we'll let that stand and get to room temperature. I'll quickly get the aerated chocolate for us. Right, so what we have here is just a bit of aerated chocolate. I'll take it out and you can see how much air we get inside.
So using the same chocolate?
Again, yeah, so using the same chocolate on the base of the plate. We've created just, what we do is just playing with textures and just by keeping the textures as almost as simple as possible so the flavour comes through. So what we did here is we've just melted down the chocolate, combined it with a mugwort oil. So we infused the oil for quite a while, to be fair, a couple of weeks. And then we just increase, we're kind of trying to take out as much as possible, but we want to add it so it gets a bit of viscosity to it. And then what we do is, as you can see, we've got that really aerated chocolate. So we put it through the siphon gun and then put it through the vacuum pack machine and let it set. And that way it just really, it's adding air into the density and it just pulls it all up, almost like an injection of air. And we form this as the base for the ice cream.
Wow.
Cool, so our last step is to put the ice cream on. This is the one, the birch ice cream, so I was talking about how we fermented it. So it's really light and really fun.
So which part of the birch do you use? The leaves or the sap?
The birch is it's probably one of the most edible trees that we have on the estate. It's kind of one of the trees that I've been quite fascinated moving over from South Africa to here. So every year we go around and we collect masses of birch sap and reduce it down to a syrup. And we use it for various different things, but actually I haven't used it on this at all. So what we've used is the bark. So what we've cut into the tree a little bit, taken out some of the bark. It's still safe enough to take the bark and the tree can still carry on thriving. So we're just taking the first, not even a centimetre out of the bark, and we just chop that up and we infuse that into the milk.
Okay.
So I'll give you a quick taste if you want.
I definitely got the good job here.
Just something a bit more fun.
Oh goodness, you can taste it's vanilla-y.
So you don't really you get the slight bitterness of it from the bird, which is quite cool because again it's very sweet. So we don't want something that's going to be too sweet, or we want something to cut it. So it's fresh. It's almost got that creme fraiche type feel.
It tastes very clean.
Yeah, very very clean. Yeah, that's just by fermenting the milk quite slowly. And just gonna pop that on top of there. Yeah, and then that's pretty much the dessert. So what we've done is now we've created the chocolate in about 5 different ways. So we've got the basic tuile, which gives a little bit of crunch. We've got the soil, which is just based in, which is a little more texture. You've got the chocolate cremeux, which has also got the caramel inside, the chocolate glaze, and you've got the chocolate, aerated chocolate, just to sit the ice cream on, which is quite nice. And then what we do is at the table, we give you the whole story about the chocolate. So what we do is we're just going to grate some of the fresh chocolate over the top. And that's it. That's our local chocolate dessert made with mugwort and fermented birch ice cream.
So now we're going to go over to Luke, who's going to select a drink to pair with this absolutely wonderful chocolate dessert.
To pair with Interlude's rich chocolate mousse with caramel and birch-infused milk ice cream, I've chosen this beautiful late harvest Riesling from Stellenbosch in South Africa. I mean, this wine will pair incredibly with the dessert. The provenance is a nod towards the South African chefs and owner down at Leonardslee, but the wine itself will pair incredibly with the dessert. It's a complex dessert. It will also work well with a more simple chocolate mousse if you're making one at home or buying them. The late harvest nature is key to making this dessert wine. The grapes are left on the vines for many weeks after they would be for harvesting for a dry wine, and the grapes start to shrivel and the natural sugar content increases. increases. So when it's fermented, you can ferment to 12% in this case, and still end up with 120 grams of natural residual sugar. So you get this beautiful, sweet, unctuous, rich, tropical style of pudding wine, which will match the rich chocolate mousse elements beautifully. Then you've got a bit of freshness coming from the milk or the milk ice cream, I should say. And there is a nice, elegant freshness and balance to this Riesling as well. Some pudding wines, particularly fortified pudding wines, can be even thicker and even more unctuous and have twice as much residual sugar in them. So this is a good balance between tropical sweetness and freshness and elegance to match the sort of the complexities within this dessert and the fact that there's freshness coming from the milk ice cream. But as I say, if you're doing a chocolate mousse, particularly if you're having ice cream with it at home, a late harvest Riesling, particularly this late harvest Riesling from South Africa, will work perfectly well. It's available here at the Horsham Cellar for $16.49 a bottle, and will pair beautifully with your chocolate mousse desserts. Enjoy.